2002 Saab 93SE with the 2-liter turbo engine. The vehicle star has been getting repeated knock detection codes, and before I go, replacing major ignition components like the famous DI direct ignition cassette, I'm going to go ahead and change the spark plugs. I have no idea when the last they were changed, and I have a feeling they could possibly be the original plugs. This vehicle is at 109,000 miles. It wouldn't surprise me if the plugs had never been changed. Alright, so to do this, it's actually pretty easy. All I'm going to do is take a T30 Torx bit right here. T30. 3/8 extension and 3/8 ratchet. And break these loose. And it should thread right out. Seems a little tight. Alright, so now that those retaining bolts are out, just go ahead and lift this off. It should pop up. Might have to wiggle it a little bit to get it off the spark plugs, because right now it is engaged in the spark plugs. Now I'm not going to unconnect the connector right here. This car is from 2002, and I don't really want to disturb electrical connectors on older vehicles as much as I can, especially hot running 4-cylinders, modern vehicles. A lot of this plastic gets brittle, and trying to take stuff off, a lot of times it'll break. So I've popped it off. That was it. I'm just going to lay it over like this. There's plenty of extra wiring here for me to do that. And this is actually the ignition cassette. Now if we look here, I can already see there's a crack right there. So that's suspicious right there. It's very possible that I might have to replace this cassette later. If any moisture is getting in there from condensation, it could be what's actually causing my misfire code. But we'll find out. It might be just the plastics cracked from a little bit of too much heating and cooling over the years. But we're going to try these spark plugs first. Alright, so now that I got my ignition cassette out, switch from my T30 to my 5/8 spark plug removal tool. You should really always use a spark plug removal tool. You can see down there it's got a little rubber boot. Helps keep you from breaking spark plugs off. Alright, so I'm just going to pop this down in on there. And it's coming right out. Alright, spark plug seems loose. I'm going to lift it out. And there it is. Wow. Yep. This is pretty worn. You can see that. It's got quite a bit of carbon buildup on it, and the electrode's actually rounded off. It's not flat anymore. And it looks like this probably is, well, there's a really good chance this is an original spark plug. Alright, so here's our old plug. It's pretty nasty. I'm going to go ahead and pull out a new plug. Now these plugs are NGK spark plugs. Specific part number is going to be BCP R6ES. Now, these are not iridium tip spark plugs. The iridium tip plugs were offered after the 99 model year, starting in 2000. I'm going with a copper core plug, and the reason for that is I found them on Amazon, and they're the recommended plug for the years before. And honestly, they're a little bit cheaper, or can be, not always, but a little bit cheaper. And in turbo motors, I know that the technology has gotten better in iridium plugs, but in turbocharged engines, that tip on there can actually sustain wear at really high exhaust gas temperatures and actually melt sometimes. Not that I think that the stock Saab motor is going to get that high in exhaust gas temperatures, but I have taken this car to racetracks, and funny enough, I got the code for, some knocking in the cylinders after I had gone to the track. Actually, while I was at the track, and since I did that track day, I've gotten those check engine lights. So this plug, a little cheaper, needs replaced more often though, maybe a little bit more resilient to high exhaust gas temperatures. So there's a couple things though, not to say that these are bad if you don't want to change the plugs as often, and some recommendations from Saab.net, which really good article on spark plug changing, and I'm actually going to link that in the description so people can check that out. A lot of good information on the difference between these two kinds of plugs and why you would choose one over the other. So basically, this plug needs to be checked for gap, and the gap that Saab recommends is 0.036. So I'm going to go ahead and take my gap tool here. There's 3.5. So where are we at here? And that gap is pretty tiny on this. So I need a little bit wider. So I'm just going to move that a little bit, see where I can get. And they're sliding it up. I am now at 36. Alright, that's pretty good there. Slide in again, slide up, boom, stops at 36. So that one was actually a little bit tight. And I recommend, if you're ever doing a conventional plug like this copper tip, check the gap. You don't know what's happened to this box, I mean, it's got this protector on it, but I mean, a lot of times I found that plugs can be pretty far out of gap, even brand new. Always good to have a spark plug gap gauge. Alright, so what would you torque this to? Well, on the back of the box it actually tells you, depending on the type of seat that the spark plug is going to sit in. I went ahead and set my torque wrench up for 18 foot-pounds. Now I don't have a torque wrench that goes that low, so I have my inch-pound torque wrench set to 216 inch-pounds. Alright, I just did the conversion, multiply by 12, got my inch-pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this brand new plug in. Alright, so I got my brand new spark plug in my socket. Let's slide that on there. Now here's the thing, when you're pulling spark plugs, especially out of modern cars that have them recessed in the valley of the valve cover, look for excessive oil leakage. Now I've got a little bit in the corners here, but nothing that would necessitate, in my opinion, maybe needing a gasket change. There's also can be a little bit of crud where the spark plugs go. Now, some people blow this out with compressed air. I could have done that here. I didn't. And what I do is I'm just careful. I just carefully pull the plugs out and put them back in so stuff doesn't dump down in there. If it was super dirty, caked on crud, I would have done it. Not even so much caked on crud, but there was a lot of sand sitting, loose sand sitting in here. I would really worry about it. But it's actually pretty clean in here. And all I'm going to do with this plug is snug it up. Right like that. Alright. So that was cylinder number 1. Kind of convenient. Saab. Good engineering. They actually put the firing order right under here. 1, 3, 4, and 2. So this will be, if we look, they also have it labeled down in the valley. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. break this one loose. Again, this plug's got quite a bit of carbon buildup on it. Maybe a tiny bit of electrode wear, but nothing really that big a deal. This cylinder is actually still firing pretty good. So something I like to do with brand new spark plugs, after inspecting them and gapping them, is put a light coat of anti-seize on that plug. And what that's going to do, especially going in things like dissimilar metals, like this steel body going into aluminum, you want to protect those two metals from each other so you don't help stop corrosion. So I like to put a little bit of anti-seize. And what this does, not a lot, you don't have to go crazy, but what it does, it just helps stop any possible corroding in spark plug into the cylinder, which basically helps not create more work for you later. Alright, so now we're going to take out cylinder number 3. Alright, now this plug's been burning a little bit better. Notice there's not as much as that almost sandpaper-like consistency on the plug of built up combustion materials, and the plug has been burning cleaner in this cylinder. A little bit of carbon on this side, but it's been burning cleaner. Our new gapped plug, and drop it down in. Interestingly enough, the first two plugs were pretty dirty, and those are the two cylinders. I was getting the codes on cylinders 1 and 2, so it's not surprising that cylinder number 3 was a cleaner plug. Cylinder number 4. Ooh, that actually looks pretty nasty as well. Pretty dirty. Pretty nasty. And last one. Nice and snugged up, and we're ready to torque these. Alright, so again I have my inch-pound torque wrench set to 216 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds. And drop that on there, and torque these up. Two clicks. Alright. 2 clicks. And they're all torqued up. Alright, so now that our plugs are in, let's go ahead and put the cassette back down. Watch the plug. Put it underneath the intercooler pressure pipe. I'm going to angle this over the plugs as best we can, and then let it drop over the plug contacts. Press it down. Alright, so now take our screws, drop them in, get them started by hand. Take our T30 bit, go ahead and tighten these down. I'm just going to run them down so they just start getting snug and then stop. I'm going to go in a crisscross pattern here. All I'm going to do is snug these. Just hand tight. You don't have to torque these. They're just holding a ignition coil system down after all. Check the final tightness. Alright, and that's it. Alright, so that was changing the spark plugs on a 2002 Saab 9.3 SE Turbo. Hope this helps everybody, and as always, stay rolling greasy.
They see me rolling greasy.